Dragon Ball Z was first released, the quality of the artwork presented in nearly every episode, from the actual series itself to even filler arcs, the attention overall to detail was extraordinary. The level was set so high that to this day, it's known that the anime adaptation of Z was some of the best work done by any studio for any anime adaptation. It would be almost impossible to keep that level of detail and quality consistent. And as a matter of fact, they set that craftsmanship to such a degree that they themselves can't reattain what they had achieved so many years ago. This Japanimation discussion will be about the animation comparison between the early years of Z and comparing it to the later years of Z and even Super. Let it be known that yes, the quality isn't as good in later years of Z, and yes, the early years overall were better. That is already known, that is already fact. But the discussion will be about is why. Why do we have this? Some might already know, and some might not. Pictures can speak for itself, but reasons should still be explained. When Z started to be produced, Japan still had the practice of hand-drawn animation cells with most of its anime adaptations. It was standard practice, so each episode and even each individual scene looked more realistic or gritty, since Z was first released in the mid to late 1980s. Now, even at this time, there was examples and instances where the quality was not as good, but overall, it was beautiful to watch. From character interactions to backgrounds to special effects, everything looked so real, if a term could be used. The quality reached all aspects, even the said violence with individual arcs or episodes or sagas looked better. But that in and of itself is another Japanimation discussion. However, in the early to mid 1990s, technology developed to the point where computer graphic imagery, CGI, started to take over the traditional aspect of hand-drawn animation cells. You can, and people did, instantly notice the difference. Everything from then onwards looked like it was edited from a computer program, because it was, and because it still is, and because it will be. Does that take away from the visual feel of the series? Yes. Does it take away from the story? No. Comparisons have been made about the visual quality of the early years of Z. But let me mention a few things that you might not have heard before. Going back to the hand-drawn aspect of it, the fact that Akira Toriyama himself did not animate the adaptation. That's impossible. The studio did. They based the adaptation from his manga work that he did do. So with this in mind, the lead animator or animating team's quality or drawing style did vary from arc to arc, even episode to episode early enough in the series. Another fact is that you will not see this much of a variation in terms of quality in later episodes of Z or even Super. Why? Again, it's because it's done by computer, so a universal level of quality can be easily put out. Hence, there's no individuality to it, and everything looks like a Photoshop, because it is. Younger or less informed fans or watchers might remark at the differences of quality between Z and Super, for example. That's because of animation progression, for better or for worse. When you see an episode of Z from the 1980s compared to an episode of Super from the 2020s, you're seeing the overall scope of animation in Japan at that time. In Japan, that's what was trending, and that is what all anime was at that particular time. Still, computer animation for an entire episode is cheaper than inking a cell for each and every particular scene, but that's how it's done. Going even further, we can see development from the animation using a character as a said example. When Vegeta was introduced, he was cartoon-like and only semi-muscular. The manga and anime are good examples of this image. And as the series progressed and he became more of a popular character, he literally bulked up to have the physique of a bodybuilder. the popularity of the series combined with physical aesthetics. The argument, even if there can't be an argument because of what the discussion is, ultimately comes down to is progression in quality with Z, Kai, and even Super as examples. If progression can make quality easier, if details are sometimes ignored, then it will be done, and it has. Animation can be detailed, as it was, but the only remark left is that, does circumstances permit that? Do people want it?